Hi, welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole, and I'm back for the second time here with Robbie Iobst. Welcome back.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me back again.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Shirt.
I know. Imagine that. I asked you if you would dress similarly so we could record a second show.
It's sparkly, though, so it's worth it.
Well, last time, Robbie, we talked a little bit about different battles that we go through, and you shared about your battle with food.
Absolutely. It's just, and I think it'll be something I'll probably battle with the rest of my life in some way or another.
Right.
It's just what the Lord, I really believe the Lord has given me this. It's a gift because it always brings me to my knees. It's something that I cannot win any war in my own strength. In the area of food, I can't do it. I have to have Him.
So it's made your relationship with God stronger.
Absolutely, especially when I surrender.
Right. Well, yeah. When you're not running away.
Oh, you got it right there.
Yeah. Well, last time we talked about the fact that you're a speaker, and you shared a little bit about that, and that you are an author, and you have a brand new book out.
I do.
Which I think we can link somehow to this as well. We'll have to figure that out. But I want to show it here. It's called Cecelia Jackson's. Let you say it.
Cecelia Jackson's Last Chance.
Yes, and
it's a novel.
I actually read it and loved it.
Oh, good.
Can you tell us a little bit about just the journey of writing this book? What made you think of this, and where did the characters come from, and all of that? How do you do this?
Well, I taught English and speech for years and years and years, but I'll go way back. I've written since I was a little girl.
Okay.
And I've always just written. I've written plays and skits for church. I wrote songs. Mm-hmm. My first masterpiece at 8 years old was called Donnie, Donnie, and Me. And it's
Would you like to sing it?
I'll recite it. I think it's actually a point. I don't know if I say it or not, but it goes something a little bit like this. Donnie, Donnie, sitting by the tree. And I don't remember the rest.
I think I'm going to weep.
Yeah. Donnie, sitting in the tree. We'll be together, loving one another forever.
Was it
Donnie.
Was it about Donnie Osmond?
See? You could feel it. It could have been about Donnie, like a neighbor or a friend, but you knew.
I'm from your age group. I know Donnie. I didn't write the sonnet.
But you feel it, don't you?
I feel ya.
Oh, Donnie.
I don't think I would have recited it quite the way, but I did sit on my bed singing Cherish. Oh. Now, that wasn't Donnie, but,
And they called it Puppy Love. Oh.
We could do a show.
I love Donnie Osmond.
Awesome. Okay.
So anyway, that's when I started. I've been writing forever.
You've moved up a little since Donnie.
Yes, I did. And I wrote. I started writing in my journal, and then I wrote poems and skits and songs. And then when I started writing for publication. Mm-hmm. I would write a lot of chicken soup things, and I started writing this devotional, which I made a book.
Right,
called,
which I have here.
You do.
Yay.
Called Joy Dance.
Joy Dance. I love your picture.
Thank you. I write Joy-votions are what I call them. Very clever, by the way.
That's
Devotions, Joy-votions. Get it?
Are you in, I was going to say the Guinness, that's not the right one. Are you in the dictionary?
No, not yet.
Not yet, but you're hoping.
I don't have a lot of hope for that, to be honest with you, but I'm very proud of making it my word.
Yeah.
And so I've just been writing forever, and then actually Cecelia Jackson's Last Chance started 13 years ago.
Really?
Yes. Noah, my 15-year-old, was 2. And at the time, I wanted to stop teaching to stay home with him.
Okay.
And we couldn't do that economically.
Right.
So I thought, what is a way for me to stop teaching and become rich?
Well, there you go. Right.
So I'll write a book. And my plan was to write a book probably in about 5 months.
Right.
And then get it to a publisher who would love it. And within a year, I'd be at Barnes & Noble with, a line around the block waiting for me to sign it. That was my plan.
And how'd that work?
It's 13 years later. does not work that way at all, So, and I've rewritten Cecelia Jackson's Last Chance like maybe 10 times.
Wow.
Over the years. I learned to write a novel through that. So I'm very blessed by the book. I'm very grateful for the book.
It's interesting that you say that you learn to write the novel through the book. And it's like people think you need to know how to write before you start writing. No, you start writing and you learn how to do it as you do it.
Exactly. Absolutely. The best way to write is to write.
Right.
You just have to put in... Right. Huh. Aren't we clever? You just have to...
spelled differently.
Yes.
For you English
homophones.
teachers. Yeah.
Homophones, right? I think. Anyway, it's been a while. Or homonym. Have your crack staff look that up. I don't know.
I will, my staff.
But anyway, so I started writing that like 13 years ago. And it's based on 3 girls who went to school together and really wanted to change the world for Jesus. They were Jesus girls in a small town in Texas. And then something happens, high school graduation night, that splinters their friendship forever. And then they come back to that town of Boots for their spiritual mentor's funeral. And we find out 25 years later what has happened to the 3 of them.
Well, and what I loved is you've got these 3 characters, and when I started the book, I didn't realize I never read all the stuff on the back. Sometimes I go back later and read it, but I don't necessarily at the beginning.
I never do either because I don't want to know the story.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So all I saw was something about tuna fish sandwiches, and I'm like, well, I don't really even like tuna fish, but we'll see how the book goes. So I started reading, and I didn't realize it was going to be told through these 3 women.
3 narrators.
Right, until I was 7 chapters in and it switched. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. What's going on here?
Right.
So what I loved was that it's very honest about how life just isn't easy. And even though appearances may tell you one thing about somebody, we can judge people based on, well, look at her over there. She's Miss whatever and has it all together, and her looks are what I would like it to be, or I'm jealous about that or whatever. And we think that their life has just turned out perfect. And it's not true for anybody.
No, absolutely. And I think that when you grow up, we all have visions, dreams of what our life will be when we get older. Mm-hmm. And rarely does it actually happen. Or
maybe you have to go through a bunch first before you get there. I do think sometimes, do you think this? I think sometimes that God maybe gives us a little bit of a vision. It may not turn out exactly like you thought.
Well, that's true.
But sometimes if you wait long enough and if you work hard enough.
Right.
Not to say that you can always work your way there, but if you work through your stuff on the way to getting there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I agree. I mean, dreams can come true.
Right.
But so many times we make decisions that take us off this perfect path.
Right.
And we can get back on the path towards our dream by working hard and praying.
Right.
But it rarely happens so smoothly.
Right.
And these 3 women... all thought one thing was going to happen with their lives. And every one of them, something different happened with their lives. And I like that concept of what real life puts us through and how it can lead to something even better than what we imagined.
Because sometimes we actually find that we've dreamed too small.
Exactly.
Or our dream was just totally thought up in our own head and it really wasn't where we were intended to go.
Exactly. And 2, just maturity shows us that life can be very complicated and be so rewarding and beautiful.
Right. So did you have inspiration for these 3 characters?
Yes, I did. I grew up with 2 other girls. And the 3 girls are not... Nobody is... It's like Maggie is not someone. Donna is not someone. Belinda is not someone. But I had 4 girls in my life that I kind of picked and chose to make these 3 characters.
Right.
But I did have a friend that we were really into Jesus. And when we left high school, she went totally the other way. And I didn't understand it. I just didn't get why she would do that. Not that I was perfect at all, but I just didn't understand growing up this way and going the other way. So the book, many novels start with a question of why, or what would happen if. And so this started with why does someone grow up loving Jesus and then walk away as soon as they're not in their hometown? Right. So that was the seed of it. And then it just kind of, took a life of its own with all the different things. The two older women, Lola B and Imogene,
right,
are a conglomeration, and Cecelia, of my mother and my aunts.
Wow.
And my mother's best friend. They are
hoops. Certainly characters. And It's so funny because I have not spent much time in Texas, especially West Texas or small town Texas.
Right.
I've been there a few times, but it's such a different world.
It is. It's got its own little character and flavor.
And language.
And language. Absolutely. It's fun. It's how I grew up.
Yeah. That's just fun. I mean, for those of us who haven't lived there, it's like you really immerse us into this culture. I was feeling a little culture shock at first.
Thank you. And it's Boots is based on my hometown of Van Horn, Texas.
Okay.
And I've had several people from Van Horn read my book and tell me that they see Van Horn. And that's one of the biggest compliments is that I accurately portrayed the feeling of this town.
Yeah.
And there were, Van Horn, and a lot of my siblings would say this. I have 3 siblings. We all grew up and we all left there. It was a wonderful place to grow up, but we would never want to go back.
A little too small?
Way too small. And there are, just a lot of small town problems. But what I wanted to bring to the book was just the loyalty and love that a small town can bring.
Well, and that there is a place for that because, I don't want to give anything away in the story, but there can be a desire for that again.
Absolutely. And I know people who do live there and love it.
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in Littleton, Colorado. Here, and have found so many people that I went to high school with that moved away, but then they all came back.
Oh, wow.
It's so interesting. Colorado is just such a neat place to live. And the climate, we have, yes, we get our blizzards, but they're usually gone in a day or two.
I spent my first 20 years in Texas, and then my first 23 years in Texas, and then 20 years in California, and now 7 years here. I'm 51. I think that adds up. But I love Colorado. This is where I think my husband and I want to die.
Yeah.
We just love it.
Well, there's a thought. I really want to die.
This is where I want to die.
Bury me now. Meaning
after I've lived a while,
yeah.
So at least 20 more years.
That's great. Well, what was this process like in writing the book, getting it published after 13 years? And what's the response been?
Well, it's my Barnes & Noble line still has not taken place. It's not like that at all. It's a lot of work and a lot of rejection. This book was rejected many times at the very first. And then I left it for a while. And my husband, who every day when I would write it, I would come home and I would read him, and he helped me with plot points, and he loved the book. And so later on, when I was writing a nonfiction book that got rejected by 10 publishing houses, I was so discouraged. And he said, why don't you go back to that Cecelia book? Because that's a really good story. So then I wrote, I think, version number 8.
Wow.
And I sent it to my then agent. And she said it really has potential, but not for me. And so she let me go. So that was another I remember going out to a cabin in the woods and sitting for 2 days just crying. What am I doing, Lord? What's this about? You call me to do this, but it's not happening. And really going back to the roots of calling and success with calling means doing it. It doesn't mean being published and getting acclaim and getting money. It means obedience. Success really is doing what he asks you to do. And so that very hard lesson for me, and not making any money And my husband, God bless him, says, don't worry about money. You do what God has called you to do. So I kept at it. And then I went to a big writing conference in California. And I took it and I thought, this is it. And 5 times, 5 people I talked to, 2 editors and 3 agents, all rejected it, saying...
On the spot.
Saying, if you rewrote it with a pure Christian point of view, because of the first of the book, Belinda is very harsh. And she's harsh all the way through the book. But if you wrote it from a Christian's point of view, she's the main character, we'll look at it. Now, I had one editor who said...
So this was obviously a Christian
conference.
Writing conference, okay.
But I had one editor from Zondervan say, I love it, but I want you to sell it to an agent. Get an agent to sell it to me. But I'd like to look at the whole thing. But all the agents said, no, we're not going to do this. So then I come home, and I'm once again discouraged. I start rewriting it, and this is number 10, I think. No, number 11, because I went back to 10. This is number 11. And I started rewriting it. And that's when Chris Richards from Written World Communications said, we'd be interested in it just as it is.
Wow.
And Written World, a traditional publisher, but small. And not necessarily a Christian publishing house. I mean, they are, but they do a lot of different. So it wasn't I wasn't even looking. I was looking for the big traditional Christian publishers. Right. And so I had to go to John again and pray. And then I went to my husband. What do you think? And he said, what does God want you to do? And so I went away again, prayed. I'm like, okay, Chris, you take a look at it. And they bought it.
Wow.
Yeah, they said, let's do it.
So how long did that process take?
12 years. Oh, yeah. From the beginning. Because it's a smaller traditional publishing house, it doesn't take long. So I think it was a year.
Okay.
A year from when I gave it to her to it coming out. And traditional publishers, although you get much more money, take 2-3 years to get your book out.
Wow.
So it was an exchange.
So when did this actually get released?
November.
Okay.
And this is March. Right, so November, December, January, February, March. 5 months.
And what's it been like for you?
It's a dream come true because I didn't have it so quickly, if that makes sense.
You had to work harder for it?
I had to work hard for this, and I got rejected so many times that this is very, very sweet. And it's also come at a time where I know it's not everything. And I think without all those rejections in 13 years, I think another person may have been able to get a book published and be okay. But I enjoy every single moment. Every single time I get a great review, someone calls me. I've gotten in touch with people from my past.
Wow.
In the book, the mortician.
Yeah.
Is actually based on a real mortician
and
that I grew up with.
His name is Kildwell.
His name is Shotwell.
Shotwell.
And he called me. He and his wife called me and said they love the book and they recognize themselves, which at the time I'm like, oh no, I hope you're okay. Because they're the only people I really based on, Mark and Carol are Ray, or Mark and Kathy are Ray and Carol Shotwell.
Oh, how funny.
And they loved it. And they live in a small town by Houston. And I've reconnected with them, which is wonderful. It was so rewarding. I mean, I remember just crying. And those are the moments that it's just like, thank you, Jesus.
This whole thing was just worth it.
Incredible. Yeah. And I have, I don't know, I've had people say they've given it to their non-Christian friends. And so I pray, I don't know all the results of that, but I pray that it will be something that people will read and go, oh, there's always hope for redemption. There's always hope for unconditional love from God, no matter what. You don't have to be perfect.
Well, and life is hard, and you show that in there, and it doesn't always go the way that you want, and maybe you got angry at God for a while and went over here, and it's not the end of your life.
No.
And your friends, sometimes from way back, maybe you'll reconnect somehow, some way. I just thought it was fun to be able to see that. And it's so funny because it's like, I don't want to give it away. And yet I think so many people can relate to it.
Yeah.
People who have stayed the path, people who have never found a path, they're just wandering around going, I don't know what my life is, I don't have a clue. People who deliberately decided, I just don't care anymore, I'm going this way.
Right.
And
I have a very good friend who's not a believer at all. And she read it, and she told me that she loved it. And we were very honest with each other, and I said, so, it's not too religious for you? And she said, no, not at all. It's not really a Christian book, is it? Which at one part I was like, no, but on the other part I was like, well, Jesus is in her subconscious through that. So who knows? Who knows what can happen?
And the thing is, it's not preachy.
Exactly, and I didn't want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about told from love. These characters, and you hear their thoughts, or you read their thoughts. Maybe you hear them, I don't know. But as I heard them as I was reading, you could tell where their hearts are, and you can tell when they're angry with each other, and when they're being loving toward each other, or they're trying to be loving but they're really angry. Right. All of that. So I thought it was neat that it showed all of the different emotions that people are. It was very true to life.
Thank you so much. I loved it, and I'm writing 2 books now at the same time.
I can't even. Well, I read 2 books at the same time.
Oh, I do too. I always have a nonfiction book and a fiction book.
I don't know how you write 2 at the same time.
Well, you just divide your time up, and But but this set in small town in Texas, one of them. But it's only through one person. Well, no, excuse me. It's through 2 people. It's through a husband and wife, and they're different perspectives. So that's really fun.
That's cool. And then what's the other one?
The other one is. It's personal essays. It's memoir-ish, but it's one of my favorite kinds of writing. It's just telling stories about my life.
Well, that's neat because I mean, you don't have to think those.
No, you don't.
That's one thing when you write about yourself, which is what I do a lot in blogs and things like that. You really don't have to study all that much because you're just writing about your own recollection and. It is what it is. You don't have to do research. It's just you have to think back a little bit, but you can. Right. I find that easier to write. I don't know. I think writing a fiction novel sounds very difficult to me. Just coming up with all the characters and everything. Right.
I think it's just a different part of the brain that, like anything, if you exercise it, it becomes more lucid and you get all these thoughts. You never knew that your imagination could do that. If you practice it, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed, we know each other a little bit, but haven't really had that much time to just sit and chat. So this has been really fun to get to do this with you a couple of different times.
Me too. I love it. Thank you, Carrie.
Absolutely. And we will have you back at some point too. So thank you. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Broken and Brilliant.